Well, it started about late last year when a few people started to ask me as to whether I should run for council, and it kind of grew from there, and I put my hand up some months ago about running as a councillor in Ward 1, and then once the group started to coalesce, we needed to have a mayoral candidate, and I decided to put my hand up as that candidate for the group being Community 1. Well, I think the first thing is the council needs to change itself, and by that I mean the focus of our group is communities come first. And I think what we've seen over a number of years is a dominion, a lowering of the importance of community consultation from council, and we want to improve that. So that's one of our goals. Another goal is that we're really interested in getting better transparent decision making, and the third goal is that we want to improve the public value of council, and by that we mean in commercial terms it means dollars well spent, and in non-commercial terms we need a number of other KPIs or key performance indicators to make sure that the performance of council improves compared to what it was. So that's council itself. In terms of Newcastle itself, Newcastle's undergoing a lot of change at present, and we would like to be involved in trying to shape that change. And then outside of Newcastle, at present the state government is undertaking a local government review and also undertaking a review of the planning legislation. And they're two very important areas of legislation which determine how local councils operate. So we would like to be involved in that as well, in terms of making sure that it works well for people in Newcastle, so that the way it's implemented here works well for people in Newcastle. Well, a number of things have happened over the last couple of years. For example, the council has abolished community forums, and what they've done is they've moved a whole lot of community consultation which has taken place in the past and put that in under the umbrella of Newcastle Voice. And Newcastle Voice has got a purpose and it works for some things, but it's not the be-all and end-all in terms of community consultation. We think that there needs to be a much broader agenda in terms of the ways in which council and the community talk to each other. Well, one way our group came together, where it began I should say, is that we spent, a number of us, and that was up to sort of 20 people, we would sit around and talk about what the important values were for our group. And so we actually spent a lot of time talking about values and how we would work together and how we would work with other groups and other people before we really started to talk about policies or even talk about who should be standing. So we've been through that process. That's where we started, and we think that was a pretty important process. And I think that the group that we've got together is a group that can work with other people quite well. We've made a range of our opinions fairly well known, and I think that we'll be able to work with others. And I know that in the past people have said that but not done it. I don't think we will, well, I know we won't go down to the personality fights and barneys that have existed in the last council. We're not going to get involved in that sort of thing. We're going to, if you like, focus on the ball, not the player. Well, John has certainly been involved in helping put the group together. He hasn't been involved continuously. One of the things that we value John for is his depth of knowledge. One of the things that probably needs to be pointed out is all our group have never been on council. That includes all the Community 1 candidates. So we think that's important, and I think a lot of people in Newcastle think that's important. But the value of having John around is that he's a walking encyclopedia of the history of council over the last many years, and he will be useful in terms of showing us the ropes and showing us how things work, showing us how to behave and those sorts of things. So I think with his knowledge and our enthusiasm and not having been involved in council before, that's a pretty good combination. I don't think so. I mean, everyone's got to get on council for the first time at some stage, and we've taken it pretty seriously. We're doing lots of reading, I have to say, lots of talking to people, taking advice from people. So we're open to all those sorts of things, and I think if we're open to those sorts of things, then we're going to, put in a pretty good performance. And we'll talk together and we'll support each other. We may not always agree on every single issue, but the important thing is it's the way you go about making decisions that's important. And I think that if you have an organisation that can go about a good way in terms of making decisions, then you're going to come more likely to come up with good decisions. Oh, look, they're very important to Newcastle. But Newcastle goes much beyond Hunter Street. And we've got a good sweep of candidates in the other wards, wards 3 and 4, and Ward 4 in particular, and we would like a lot more attention to be paid to those wards. Our launch was in Lambton Park in the Rotunda, and the reason we chose that as our launch spot is because it's roughly in the centre of Newcastle. And we thought that was significant in terms of just making a statement basically that we acknowledge that Newcastle is a whole city, and part of our brochure, for example, says from Beresfield to Bar Beach, and so we're looking after residents and ratepayers in all those suburbs. Well, I don't have any detailed knowledge, and that detailed knowledge is a bit difficult to get sometimes when you're not on council. It's probably difficult to get when you are on council. We would certainly look at the priorities that have been established, and we'd look at seriously of maybe making cuts in some areas. I don't know, I've got no idea at this point in time. But certainly not just treating the ratepayer as a pot of money, that if we run out then we just go back to the ratepayer, or we up the parking fees, for example. So I think there needs in some areas to be some restraint. The old term bootstrapping, which lots of companies have used, lots of organisations have used, non-profit organisations, probably needs to be also applied to council, and being a bit innovative about how we go about implementing some of our programs, and in fact making use of the council's greatest resource apart from their staff, and that's the community which they serve and which pays a large percentage of their budget. My own chances of becoming Lord Mayor, not great. The Community One's chances of getting 4 councillors in, I think, are very good. I think they're very good. 2 other candidates, 3 other candidates. So I don't expect to come out on the top in the mayoral race. There are other candidates who have a much higher profile than me and have more experience. The key thing for me is being the lead candidate, I guess, as you would say, the mayor for the group, for our group, which is Community One Independence. And our important thing, our goal is to get 1 person up from each of the 4 wards so that we can provide a good representation based around our idea that communities come first.